They say, you don't really know who you are until you've been locked inside Rikers Island. Some call it jail. Others call it a living hell suspended between Manhattan and the Bronx, a place where time slows, tempers ignite, and mercy becomes a myth. From the moment those gates slam behind you, the rules of the world change. This is not about guilt or innocence anymore. This is survival. Welcome to Rikers Island, New York's most infamous holding pen for the damned. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because once you enter this place, not everyone makes out the same. The island between worlds. The first thing you notice is the smell. It's not the rot of death. Not exactly, but something deeper, heavier. A blend of sweat, bleach, steel, and hopelessness. It clings to your clothes, your skin, your soul. For over 8 decades, Rikers Island has stood as a grim monument to New York's justice system. 11 jails stretch across 400 acres of reclaimed marshland, trapped between the Bronx and Queens. It's where suspects await trial, where sentences shorter than a year are served, and where reputations are buried alive. Every year, tens of thousands of men and women pass through its gates, some for petty crimes, some accused of murder. Most are there because they can't afford bail. And once you're inside, your status, your money, your name, none of it matters. The island has its own economy, its own justice, and its own gods. Officers call it the Rock. Inmates call it the island that breaks men. But before you even see the inside of the cell, you have to survive the intake process. The first trial every inmate faces, the ride to the island. They call it the bus ride. It's the moment when freedom finally evaporates. You're shackled at the wrists and ankles, squeezed shoulder to shoulder with 20 other inmates inside a metal transport van. No windows, no sunlight, just the rattle of the road as the van makes its slow crawl across the Rikers Island Bridge, the only road in or out. From the outside, it feels almost cinematic, a gray skyline fading in the distance, the van crossing over a stretch of water glinting under the morning sun. But inside, it's dead silent. Every man knows what's waiting on the other side. Some whisper prayers. Others keep their eyes closed. A few smirk, pretending they're not afraid. But the truth is, everyone feels it, that moment when the wheels touch Rikers soil. It's like crossing into another country, one ruled by violence, hierarchy, and fear. The guard steps out first, barking orders. Face forward. No talking. The doors swing open. Heat rushes in, and the smell hits like a punch. You step off the bus, blinking under the harsh light, and there it is, the Eric M. Taylor Center, one of Rikers' main intake buildings. Peeling paint, razor wire, and concrete walls that seem to stretch forever. You've arrived. Intake. The line moves slow. You hand over your clothes, your belongings, your name. They strip you down, not just physically, but psychologically. You're fingerprinted, photographed, scanned, and processed like an object. One man in front of you mutters something under his breath. A guard slams him against the wall before he can finish the sentence. No one moves after that. Then comes a medical check, where a nurse looks at you like you're already infected. Then the mental evaluation, where you're asked if you've ever thought about harming yourself. Most say no, because here, that answer means you're sent to a different building, where observation feels worse than punishment. You get a uniform, orange or beige, depending on your classification. Then they hand you a thin mattress, a bar of soap, a toothbrush too small to do any good. And they send you to the bullpen, a holding cell crammed with dozens of other men waiting to be assigned to a housing unit. This is where you start to understand how things really work. You see the tattoos, the gang signs, the eyes that don't blink. You learn fast who runs a cell, who you don't look at, who you don't bump into, who you never, ever disrespect. A fight breaks out in the corner. 2 men over a pack of crackers. No guards intervene. They just watch from behind the glass until one man stops moving. Welcome to Rikers, the classification game. Before you can even sleep, you're pulled for classification. They ask questions like, any gang affiliation? Any enemies we should know about? Most people lie, because being labeled means being marked. If you're connected to a crew, Bloods, Crips, Latin Kings, Trinitarios, you'll be sent to a block controlled by your people. But if you're unaffiliated, you're alone. And alone doesn't last long here. The officers assign you based on risk level, minimum, medium, or maximum. But the lines blur. A man arrested for unpaid tickets might share a dorm with a murderer awaiting trial. That's Rikers. Once you're classified, they take you through another set of metal detectors and steel doors until you reach your assigned building. A maze of corridors humming with fluorescent light. And that's when it hits you. You're not going home tonight. Maybe not for months. Maybe not ever. The dorm. You walk into your dorm for first time. 50 bunks lined in 2 rows, men sprawled across them like exhausted animals. Some are reading. Some are yelling at voices only they can hear. Some are watching you. The new guy, like fresh meat. The officer on duty points to an empty bunk. That's yours. You put down your mattress. Someone whistles from across the room. Another laughs. You don't respond. You just sit. You wait. And you listen. The sounds never stop. Laughter, threats, music leaking from a smuggled radio, the clang of metal against metal. Then lights out. You try to sleep, but sleep doesn't come easy here. Not when every shadow feels like danger. Not when every snore could be followed by a scream. In Rikers, even silence has a heartbeat. The morning routine. The island never sleeps. It's 5:30 a.m. when the lights explode back on. There's no sunrise here, just a cold, artificial flicker of fluorescent tubes. The guard's voice echoes down the tier. Wake up, chow time. Some men groan. Others are already awake. They've been up all night, pacing, whispering, planning. You sit up on your bunk, the thin mattress creasing beneath you, your neck sore from sleeping on concrete wrapped in cotton. The air smells like disinfectant, sweat, and old bread. You grab your tray, a gray piece of plastic molded into compartments. One for watery eggs, one for a slice of toast, and one for what might be oatmeal. The older inmates eat in silence, trained to finish before anyone can take what's theirs. The younger ones talk loud, trying to prove something, that they're not scared, that they belong here. But everyone's scared. The officers walk past like ghosts in uniforms, scanning faces for tension. They've seen what happens when breakfast turns violent. Sometimes a fight starts over something stupid. A seat, a missing carton of milk, a glance held a second too long. The officers only intervene if they have to. Otherwise, they let the code of Rikers handle it. And that code is simple. Respect or regret. The politics of survival. By the second day, you start learning the rules no one teaches you. Don't talk too much. Don't look too long. Don't touch another man's property. Everything here belongs to someone. The TV in the corner, claimed by the strongest crew. The phone near the wall, run by the gangs. Even the shower times are controlled. A rotation based on alliances and threats. If you're new, someone will approach you, usually an older inmate, calm, polite, helpful. He'll offer advice, maybe a snack, maybe a favor. But nothing is free. Every favor comes with a price you'll pay later. Sometimes it's money sent from family outside. Sometimes it's loyalty, being told to back someone up in a fight. If you refuse, you're marked as weak. If you accept, you're owned. The real danger isn't the violence you see. It's a violence you don't. Deals are whispered during recreation. Punishments planned in silence, and revenge delivered when the cameras blink away. Even the guards play their own games. Some turn a blind eye for a cut of contraband, cigarettes, phones, pills. Others use inmates as informants to control the chaos. It's a web of survival, and every move you make can pull the wrong thread. The yard. When they finally open the gates of the yard, the sound is deafening, shouting, laughter, sneakers scraping concrete. It's the one place where the sky feels real again. The yard is surrounded by 2 layers of razor wire, with guard towers overlooking from above. Inmates move in clusters, not by choice, but by necessity. The Bloods stay by the wall. The Crips gather near the benches. The Latin Kings control the corner by the pull-up bars. And the rest, the loners, keep their heads down and eyes forward. You feel the heat of the sun for the first time in days. You breathe, but you don't relax. No one does. Fights happen fast here. A stare, a word, a bump, that's all it takes. The guards in the tower shout warnings. Sometimes even fire rubber rounds if things get out of hand. But most of the time, they just watch. They've learned to let the island police itself. You see a man doing push-ups in the corner, 100 at a time. Another pacing like a predator, waiting for someone to make a mistake. It's survival theater, played out every single day under the same unforgiving sky. Isolation. When fights break out or tempers boil over, punishment is swift. You're stripped, cuffed, and walked down a narrow hall with peeling paint and flickering lights. This is the Bing, Rikers' version of solitary confinement. A 6x8 cell with no window, one dim bulb, and a toilet that barely works. You get 1 hour out. In another cage, alone. Meals come through a slot in the door. The walls are covered in scratch marks, graffiti, and names carved deep. Men trying not to disappear completely. Days blur into nights. You count cracks in the ceiling. You talk to yourself just to hear a human voice. After a week, you start hearing things. Footsteps that aren't there, whispers that sound like your own thoughts speaking back. Some men never recover from isolation. When they come out, their eyes look hollow, as if they left part of themselves behind in the dark. And the truth is, they did. The visits. Once a week. If you're lucky, your name is called for a visit. You're shackled again, escorted through metal doors and winding corridors until you reach the visiting area. A fluorescent-lit room, divided by thick glass panels. On the other side, families wait. Mothers clutching photos. Girlfriends with tired eyes. Children who don't understand why their father can't hug them. You sit down. The phone is cold in your hand. For a few minutes, the island fades away. You talk about the outside world, about food, about music, about time. But there's always that silent countdown in your head, knowing it'll end too soon. When the visit's over, you stand, press your hand to a glass, and it feels like saying goodbye to a life that no longer belongs to you. The psych ward. There's a place inside Rikers few talk about, the mental observation unit, known as MOD. Here, the screams never stop. You hear them echo down the hall, day and night. Men arguing with invisible voices. Others pounding on doors until their knuckles bleed. Some end up there because they were already sick. Others lose their minds after months of violence, fear, and isolation. Psychiatrists do their rounds, but resources are thin. Most treatment comes in the form of pills, sedatives that blur reality until the world feels distant. Guards try to keep order, but it's chaos wrapped in procedure. One inmate tells another he's seen the devil in the ceiling vents. Another smears words on the wall using toothpaste, trying to spell out help. It's a side of Rikers the public never sees, not in reports, not in documentaries, not in the news. Because it's easier to talk about criminals than broken minds. The corruption within. There's an unwritten truth on Rikers Island. The system doesn't work without corruption. It breathes through every corridor, whispered between guards, passed between cells, smuggled through food carts and laundry bags. For every rule, there's a price. For every punishment, a favor. For every gate, someone holding a key for the right amount of cash. Contraband flows like currency. Cigarettes, Suboxone strips, cell phones, even homemade weapons. You'd think it comes from the inmates. But no, most of it comes from the people paid to keep order. A guard walks the tier, nods to an inmate sitting quietly on his bunk. They exchange nothing, not a word, not a glance. But that night, a phone appears on the mattress. By morning, commissary money shifts hands in silence, through family outside the walls. And so the cycle turns, guards supplementing their low salaries, inmates building empires behind bars. The only ones who lose are the ones who can't pay. But corruption here isn't just about money. It's about control. Some officers form alliances with gangs to maintain peace, letting certain crews run the phones or the showers in exchange for calm. Others use informants, men who trade secrets for protection. Snitches, they're called. And in Rikers, being labeled one is a death sentence. A few officers abuse their power outright, using violence as currency, intimidation as language. They push, they provoke, they punish. And when the paperwork comes, the story always reads the same. Inmate became aggressive. No cameras tell the full story. No witness dares to speak. And those who try often end up in solitary or worse, transferred, beaten, or lost in system. That's the thing about Rikers. Justice doesn't just bend here. It breaks. The hidden economy. Every man in Rikers is broke, but money never stops moving. It flows invisibly through phone accounts, commissary orders, and coded messages smuggled in through visits. Inside, everything has a price. A pack of ramen, $5. A cigarette, $20. A smuggled phone call, $100. Power here isn't measured by strength alone. It's measured by access. Access to phones, to guards, to favors, to food. Inmates run gambling rings on card games and sports. They loan commissary credit with interest. They tax others for using the phones, sometimes charging $1 a minute, paid by relatives outside. And those relatives, they're often threatened. A mother gets a call, "Your son owes us." If she doesn't pay, her son gets jumped. Simple math. In the shadows of every dorm, a network thrives, an underground economy that makes millions every year, untaxed, unseen. And sometimes it reaches beyond the walls. Former inmates keep the trade alive, running operations from the outside to funnel money back in. Packages, bribes, deliveries, all orchestrated with the precision of a small army. The island isn't just a jail. It's a business, one that feeds on chaos. The gangs that rule the island. Rikers has no single ruler, but it has kings. The Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings, the Trinitarios, each claiming territory within walls that were supposed to hold them all the same. To the public, they're rival gangs. Inside Rikers, they're governments. Each one enforces its own code of justice, its own discipline, its own form of control. The Bloods run many dorms, especially in the adolescent housing units. Their lieutenants act as judges and enforcers. A dispute over respect can end with a beating, called a $1.50 when a blade slices a cheek open from mouth to ear, a mark of dishonor, seen by all. The Crips hold the phones in other units, deciding who calls home and who doesn't. The Latin Kings tax newcomers. The Trinitarios enforce their power with knives carved from broom handles and sharpened plastic. When violence erupts, it's not chaos, it's structure. Messages pass through toilets, written on soap wrappers, or whisper between cells during count. Each act of violence has a purpose, to remind the island who's really in charge. Guards know. Some even rely on it. Better to have the gangs control their own than for officers to face full-scale riots. But the peace they buy with blood never lasts long. Because on Rikers, order and anarchy live side by side, one heartbeat away from collapse. The riots, it starts with one shout, then two, then the entire dorm erupts. A tray flies, a chair follows, then a blade flashes. It doesn't take much, a rumor, a stolen radio, a smirk. And suddenly, Rikers becomes a war zone. Guards flood in with batons and shields. Inmates scatter, flipping bunks, forming barricades, screaming into the air. The sound is unbearable. Metal against metal, boots slamming, voices breaking. Tear gas fills the room. You can't breathe. You can't see. You just crawl, coughing, trying not to get trampled. The riot lasts minutes, maybe hours. Time doesn't work the same when you're choking on fear. When it's over, the floors are slick with sweat and blood. Bodies are dragged out. Names are called. And for every man involved, there's a punishment waiting, solitary, transfer, loss of visits, loss of commissary. But the worst punishment of all is silence. Because in Rikers, after the chaos, the quiet feels more dangerous than the noise. The deaths they don't report. Rikers doesn't talk about its dead. Not publicly. Not honestly. Each year, men die here, from fights, from neglect, from despair. But their names fade fast. On paper, it's natural causes, suicide, accident. Inside, the truth is whispered differently. A man found hanging. Guards say self-inflicted. Inmates say he was beaten. Another overdoses. But no one saw him get drugs. A third collapses during lockdown, begging for help that never came. The cameras didn't catch that either. For the families, The calls come cold. We regret to inform you. And that's it. No answers. No justice. Just another body off the island. What makes it worse is how routine it's become. Even the officers grow numb, moving from one tragedy to the next like clockwork. Each death is paperwork, not a person. And for the ones who survive, the message is clear. Rikers takes pieces of you long before it takes your life. The whistleblowers. Not everyone inside Rikers stays silent. Some speak, knowing full well it might cost them everything. It begins quietly, in whispers between correctional officers tired of the same stories repeating. One officer, let's call her Ramirez, has worked there for 9 years. She's seen men beaten unconscious, seen inmates denied medical care, seen reports vanish before sunrise. One night, she starts recording. Every scream, every ignored plea for help, every moment the cameras malfunctioned. For weeks, she gathers evidence, hidden audio files, photos, internal memos. Then she leaks them to a journalist from a New York Ledger. That story never fully saw daylight. It was killed in legal review. But the copies Ramirez kept, they started circulating anyway. And suddenly, the cracks in Rikers' walls weren't just physical. They were moral. Other officers began speaking anonymously, describing a system too broken to fix. They talk about falsified incident reports, cover stories crafted by supervisors, and the unspoken pressure keep numbers low even when the violence was high. One whistleblower, Officer Johnson, described it like this. It's not that Rikers is out of control. It's that control is an illusion. Everyone's pretending. The officers, the inmates, the politicians. We all just keep pretending until someone dies. But whistleblowing in Rikers doesn't end with applause. Ramirez was reassigned. Johnson disappeared from the department's roster a month later. No public statement. No reason given. And yet, for the first time, the outside world started paying attention. Lawyers, reporters, and activists began calling Rikers what it truly was, a human rights disaster inside U.S. borders. But as the tension grew, so did the desperation of those trying to keep the island's secrets buried. The hidden cameras. In 2019, an investigative filmmaker, operating under a fake maintenance contract, managed to smuggle small body cameras into Rikers. The footage would later be described as the closest thing to a confession the island has ever made. Hidden in shirt collars and belt buckles, those cameras recorded what the official tours never showed. The unlit corridors, the broken showers, the screams echoing through the psychiatric units at 3 a.m., officers betting on fights during lockdown, inmates sewing gashes shut with needles meant for laundry tags. When the footage leaked online, the Department of Corrections scrambled to deny it. They called it manipulated, misleading. But the voices on the tape, the laughter, the fear, they couldn't be faked. One inmate's voice was heard saying, "We don't do time here. Time does us." The video spread faster than any official report ever had. For a brief moment, the world looked at Rikers and saw not criminals, but people trapped in a machine that fed on its own misery. And yet, even as outrage grew, the gates stayed locked. The buses kept coming. The island kept running. Because shutting down Rikers would mean admitting the truth, that it was never just a jail. It was a reflection of everything America didn't want to see. The plan to close Rikers. In 2017, under mounting pressure, New York City announced its plan to close Rikers Island. The mayor called it a stain on our city's soul. The plan was ambitious, a 10-year roadmap to replace Rikers with smaller borough-based jails. But change moves slow when profit moves fast. Every delay meant more contracts, more jobs, more money for those who benefited from the system's existence. And for every official promising reform, there were officers and unions fighting to keep the island alive. Some said it was about safety. Others said it was about control. But most knew the truth. Closing Rikers wasn't just a policy decision. It was an identity crisis. Generations of officers had worked there. Whole neighborhoods depended on it. The island wasn't just infrastructure. It was a culture. And cultures don't vanish overnight. Even now, years after the first announcement, the deadlines keep shifting. 2027 became 2029. then 2031. Each extension justified by logistics, budget, or infrastructure. Meanwhile, the population inside kept rising, and the island, that place between the boroughs and the abyss, kept breathing, the echo that never fades. Rikers Island was meant to be temporary, a place for the accused, not the condemned. But decades later, it stands as something far more permanent, a reminder how easy it is to lose humanity behind walls built to contain it. Some men walk out, some never do, but all who enter carry the same echo, the sound of chains, the smell of concrete, the memory of a place that never truly lets go. If this story opened your eyes, if it made you think about justice, power, and what it really means to be free, then take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more true stories from the dark corners of the world most people never see. Because the island may one day close, but the system that built it still lives among us.